The peaceful hum of Earth's moon colony was shattered in an instant. In the dark vacuum of space, something went horribly wrong. A brilliant flash of light, followed by an explosion of unimaginable scale, rocked the lunar surface. The colony, a sprawling city of advanced technology, was obliterated in a matter of seconds. The workers, the scientists, the civilians, gone in an instant. The Zorathian Empire, an alien race known for their brutal conquests across the galaxy, had finally arrived. A cold, metallic voice echoed through Earth's communication networks, cutting through the chaos. The message was broadcasted to every screen on Earth, across cities, homes, and military bases. It came without warning, without mercy. Surrender or perish. Resistance is futile, the voice said. The entire world stopped. For a moment, there was silence. Then came the panic. People stared at their screens, horrified. News outlets replayed the image of the moon colony's destruction, looping it over and over again. Civilians, once oblivious to the dangers lurking in the cosmos, now faced the undeniable truth. The Zorathians were not just a distant threat. They were here, and they had just struck the first blow. On Earth, there was a sense of helplessness in the air. The Zorathian fleet was vast, a monstrous armada of sleek, advanced warships, each capable of decimating entire cities with a single shot. The power they wielded was incomprehensible. The few human fleets scattered across the stars were no match for the overwhelming force of the Zorathians. The people of Earth felt the weight of the moment. They had always believed they were safe, isolated in their corner of the universe. But now, everything was at risk. The Zorathians were a species known for their ruthlessness, an empire that had crushed countless civilizations. Their technological advancements far outstripped anything humanity had ever developed. The humans were mere ants in the eyes of these invaders. As news spread, panic turned into terror. Governments scrambled to respond. Military leaders made hurried plans. But deep down, they knew it was too late. The Zorathian fleet was already on its way to Earth, and there was no stopping them. In the president's office, Earth's leaders gathered in a war room, their faces grim. The holographic displays flickered with images of the Zorathian ships advancing towards Earth's defenses. They could only watch as their orbital defenses were obliterated one by one. The planet's strongest weapons had no effect on the alien ships, their shields too powerful for humanity's weapons to pierce. It was like watching an ant try to defend itself against a human with a magnifying glass. The president of Earth's United Alliance, a woman known for her calm and steady leadership, stood by the window, staring out into the dark expanse of space. She had seen Earth through times of peace, conflict, and hardship, but nothing had ever prepared her for this. Her voice was steady, but her words carried the weight of a people on the brink of annihilation. "What do we do now?" she asked, her eyes locking with the military advisors around her. A moment of silence hung in the air. No one had an answer. There was nothing they could do. The alien fleet had already proven itself unstoppable. But then, as if by some divine intervention, the doors to the war room slid open. Admiral Marcus Kane stepped inside, his expression calm and unreadable. Kane was an enigma, a military strategist known for his unorthodox methods and extraordinary success in battles that seemed impossible to win. He was the last hope for Earth. He had been a shadow, a figure who had avoided the spotlight for years, working quietly behind the scenes. Few knew his true capabilities, but those who did feared and respected him. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to the admiral. His reputation had preceded him. He was the kind of man who could turn the tide of a war with a single decision, a single move. But what could he possibly do against an enemy like the Zorathians? The president regarded him closely, searching for some sign of hope in his eyes. "Admiral, we are outmatched. Our defenses are useless. We need a plan. Do you have one?" For a long moment, Kane said nothing. He stood there, staring at the screens showing the Zorathian fleet closing in. His face was stoic, But his eyes betrayed something else, something that no one else in the room had dared to acknowledge. There was hope. Finally, Kane spoke, his voice calm but firm. "They've made a mistake," he said simply. "They've provoked the wrong species. It's time to reveal our hand." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Everyone in the room stared at him, confused. Reveal what? What could humanity possibly have to fight back with? Admiral Kane stepped forward and activated a series of holographic displays. A map of the solar system appeared, with various hidden points marked across it. The room fell silent again as they realized what he was about to reveal. For years, Earth has been preparing for something like this. We've built a fleet, one far greater than anything the Zorathians could ever imagine. And it's hidden deep in the far reaches of our solar system. We have a weapon they've never seen. And now, it's time to show them what humanity is capable of. The president and the advisors exchanged glances, disbelief etched on their faces. How was this possible? How had Earth managed to build such a fleet without anyone knowing? Kane's lips curled into a slight confident smile. It's time to end this before it even begins. As the Admiral turned to activate the launch sequence for humanity's hidden fleet, the room fell into a tense silence. For the first time since the attack began, there was a flicker of hope, a sense that Earth might not be doomed after all. The Zorathians had underestimated humanity, and now they would face the consequences of their arrogance. The audience, too, is left with a sense of anticipation. What does Earth have hidden away? How can a species that was just moments ago on the brink of destruction possibly stand against the overwhelming might of the Zorathian Empire? Kane's next words are a promise and a warning. We are not the prey. We are the storm. And with that, humanity's secret weapon would soon be unleashed. Years before the Zorathians had even set foot in Earth's space, humanity had already recognized the dangers that lurked in the galaxy. For decades, Earth had endured countless threats, alien species that had tried to invade, conquer, and destroy. Some were defeated, some retreated, but the fear was always present. Humans knew that peace was an illusion in the vastness of space. They could never relax, and they could never be caught unprepared again. The idea for the Dreadnought initiative was born in the quietest, darkest corners of Earth's military command. It was a project so secret, so vital, that only a handful of people knew it existed. But as the galaxy became more dangerous, and more alien races began to take notice of Earth, the time to act had finally come. The Dreadnought initiative was Earth's final answer to the ever-growing list of alien threats. It was a plan that had been in motion for over 2 decades, and it was about to be revealed to the universe. The fleet was hidden, cloaked, and waiting. A fleet of 500,000 warships, each one equipped with technology so advanced, so far beyond anything humanity had ever revealed, that it made the Zorathian ships look like ancient relics. These ships were no mere weapons. They were the embodiment of humanity's will to survive. The dreadnoughts had been secretly constructed in asteroid belts, far from prying eyes, hidden deep within the reaches of the solar system. The final touches had been placed in deep space facilities that were camouflaged by advanced cloaking technology. No one outside of Earth's highest command knew the full extent of the fleet's capabilities, and no one outside Earth's borders had any idea that such a fleet even existed. In the shipyards, deep in a remote area of the solar system, the hum of machinery filled the air. Engineers, technicians, and AI specialists worked tirelessly to prepare the fleet for launch. The massive warships were carefully checked, their weapons systems activated, their shields calibrated. Every ship was a masterpiece of engineering, a symbol of humanity's ingenuity and resilience. Each one was built for one purpose only: to protect Earth, and to show the galaxy that humanity was no longer a species to be underestimated. Among the engineers and technicians working in the massive underground facilities was Lieutenant Sarah Connors, a young pilot. Her eyes were sharp, her focus unwavering. She wasn't just any pilot. Sarah had lost everything in a previous alien attack: her family, her home, her entire world. It had been an invasion of a ruthless alien race, one that had crushed her city and left nothing behind but destruction. That attack had left a scar on her soul, but it had also driven her to become the best. The pain of loss had transformed into determination. She had joined Earth's military forces, trained harder than anyone, and fought in battles to protect the future. But now, as she stood in the shadow of the Dreadnought fleet, Sarah knew that this was the moment that could change everything. The fleet was not just humanity's final weapon. It was a symbol of their resolve to never be powerless again. Sarah looked at the towering silhouette of the warship she was assigned to, a ship she would soon call home. The ship was sleek and deadly, a perfect blend of speed and firepower. It was a marvel of human design, capable of cloaking itself in deep space, making it nearly invisible to enemy sensors. The ship's weaponry was a sight to behold. Energy cannons that could obliterate entire fleets with a single shot, and missiles that could penetrate the toughest alien defenses. But it wasn't the ship's power that caught Sarah's attention. It was the sheer size of the fleet minus 500,000 ships, each one a symbol of Earth's defiance against the galaxy. This was humanity's answer. The world would see that humans were not to be trifled with. Beside her, Commander Liam Hart watched over the preparations. Liam was a war-hardened leader, his face weathered by the battles he had fought and the lives he had lost. He was a man who had seen the horrors of war up close and who had learned the harsh lessons that only time and experience could teach. His reputation preceded him. In battle, he was known for his calm, his precise tactics, and his ability to turn impossible situations into victories. But beneath the tough exterior, Liam was not just a commander. He was a man driven by the same pain that had shaped Sarah, by the same loss that had pushed them both to fight for something greater than themselves. Sarah could see the fire in his eyes as he looked over the fleet. She knew that, like her, he was ready. The time had come to show the galaxy what humanity was capable of. The fleet, the dreadnoughts, the entire mission, it all hinged on the hope that their enemies had no idea what was coming. Admiral Kane arrived at the shipyards, his presence commanding respect from all who were present. The engineers and technicians fell silent as he entered. Kane was a man of few words, but when he spoke, people listened. He had led humanity through countless battles, and it was his leadership that had brought them this far. Today, his eyes held a glint of something else, a quiet confidence that radiated from him as he surveyed the fleet. Today, Admiral Kane began, his voice low and steady. We show the galaxy who we are. For too long, we've been underestimated. For too long, we've hidden in the shadows. But no more. Today we rise. Today we reveal our hand. The Dreadnought Initiative is not just a fleet. It is a message to anyone who thinks they can crush us, that we will not go quietly into the night. We fight, we survive, and we win. His words were simple, yet powerful. There was no grand speech, no dramatic flair, just truth, and it resonated with everyone who heard it. The men and women standing before him were not just soldiers and pilots. They were humans, and they were about to show the universe that they would not back down. Not now. Not ever. Sarah's grip tightened around the controls of her ship. She was ready. Ready to fight for her family. Ready to fight for Earth, and ready to make sure that no one ever threatened her home again. As the Dreadnought fleet powered up, the lights on the ships flickered, and their engines hummed to life. The time for hiding was over. Earth's hidden fleet had been unleashed. The ships began to move, silently and swiftly, cloaked in darkness, as they prepared to launch into the stars. The Zorathians would never know what hit them. As Sarah and Commander Hart boarded their ships, they looked out at the fleet, ready to face the greatest battle of their lives. The dreadnoughts would soon enter battle, and the galaxy would know that humanity was not to be underestimated. For the first time in history, the balance of power in the galaxy was about to shift. Humanity's secret weapon had been revealed, and the universe would tremble before it. The city lights across Earth flickered as a dark shadow cast itself over the planet. The Zorathian fleet, massive and unyielding, had arrived in Earth's orbit. For days, the skies above Earth had been eerily silent, but now it felt like the very air was holding its breath. The once peaceful skies were about to be torn apart. The Zorathians wasted no time. Their fleets, swarming with countless ships, began an orbital bombardment. Massive projectiles launched from their warships, streaking across the heavens and descending upon Earth's most vital cities. In an instant, the world was plunged into chaos. The people below could only watch in horror as their cities were wiped off the map, one explosion at a time. People ran through the streets in a blind panic, seeking shelter wherever they could. Mothers clutched their children, families huddled together in fear, and the once bustling cities were reduced to echoes of desperation. Air raid sirens blared across the globe, but they were nothing more than a cruel reminder of the helplessness the human race was feeling. The Zorathian warships had done the impossible, crushing Earth's orbital defenses with precision strikes, their alien weaponry too powerful for humanity's outdated systems. Earth's last line of defense had crumbled before the first wave of attack. On the ground, people screamed as the Earth trembled from the shockwaves. Buildings shook and collapsed, while debris filled the air. Destruction was everywhere, and the promise of hope seemed distant. There was no sign of retaliation, no counterattack, no force to hold back the Zorathians. The situation seemed hopeless. Earth had lost. At the command center in Earth's United Alliance, the president stared out the window, helpless. He had watched the destruction unfold on the screens, seeing the cities burn, one after another. He turned to Admiral Marcus Kane, who stood by his side, eyes fixed on the data pouring in. Kane had always been the calm center amidst chaos, but even now, as the world fell apart, there was no sign of fear in his expression. "Admiral," the president said, his voice barely a whisper, "are we too late? Is it over?" Kane didn't answer immediately. He turned and looked at the president, then at the devastation outside. The world was crumbling, but there was still something left to fight for. Kane's lips curled into a slight smirk. "Not yet," he said, his voice cool and steady. "It's time." With a swift motion, he pressed a button on the console in front of him. On Earth's surface, deep beneath the ground, a series of hidden signal relays activated. Across the world, from every corner of the globe, a strange signal was broadcast. A frequency that, for the first time in years, would reveal Earth's true power. The moment the Zorathians began their final assault, preparing to deliver the killing blow, the sky opened. It was like the heavens themselves had torn apart. What had once been a clear blue sky now erupted in a dramatic display of shifting colors. The atmosphere crackled with energy as massive forms began to emerge from the blackness of space. From within the asteroid belts, from the hidden deep space facilities, Earth's fleet revealed itself. The Dreadnoughts, a fleet of 500,000 warships, each one a behemoth of technology and death, decloaked in unison. The sight was enough to take anyone's breath away. They shimmered as their cloaking shields faded, revealing their massive forms. The engines of the ships glowed with a fierce, fiery light, like the stars themselves had been drawn into their cores. The Dreadnoughts were no longer hidden. Earth was no longer vulnerable. On Earth's surface, people stopped running, stopped panicking, as they looked to the skies. For the first time in days, hope surged within them. They could see the ships. They could see their salvation. The fleet's sheer size and power was overwhelming. It was the hope humanity had been waiting for. Admiral Kane's voice came through the comm system, calm and commanding as ever. "All ships, engage." And with that, the battle began. The Dreadnoughts unleashed their devastating plasma cannons, bright streams of energy lashing out like bolts of lightning from the heavens. The first shots hit the Zorathian warships with devastating force. The Zorathians had been confident in their victory, but they were not prepared for the sheer power of the Dreadnoughts. Their formations were torn apart as the plasma cannons obliterated ship after ship in blinding flashes. Massive explosions filled the sky as the Zorathian fleet reeled from the unexpected attack. The scale of the battle was unimaginable. Space became a chaotic battlefield as Earth's fleet tore through the skies. Fighters zipped through the void, engaging in high-speed dogfights with the Zorathian ships. Explosions rang out as missiles shot through the darkness, hitting their targets with pinpoint accuracy. There was no time for hesitation, no space for weakness. Every ship was engaged in combat, every crew member focused on the task at hand: survival. Sarah Connors, piloting one of the Dreadnoughts, felt her pulse race as her ship swerved through the chaos. The Zorathians had underestimated the speed and agility of Earth's fleet. Despite the advanced technology of the alien ships, they were no match for the humans' determination. Sarah's fingers flew across the controls, maneuvering her ship with expert precision. Her heart pounded in her chest as she engaged enemy craft, her weapons firing in perfect synchronization with her movements. Target locked, she muttered to herself as she pressed the trigger. A volley of missiles launched from her ship, tearing through the void toward a Zorathian destroyer. It erupted in a massive fireball, disintegrating in a shower of debris. "Direct hit," Sarah said, her voice barely audible over the comms. But there was no time to celebrate. The battle raged on. Commander Liam Hart's ship was at the front of the assault, leading the charge with unrelenting determination. His ship cut through the ranks of Zorathian fighters like a blade through paper. Plasma cannons roared to life, and Zorathian ships disintegrated with every shot. The destruction was swift and beautiful, like the cosmic dance of death. But for every victory, there was a cost. Ships from Earth were also falling, torn apart by enemy fire. The casualty rate was rising, and the battle was far from over. "Hold the line," Liam barked over the comms, his voice firm. "We're not letting them retreat. Push forward, now." The battle intensified, the sounds of combat reverberating through every ship in Earth's fleet. It wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a fight for Earth's very existence. The Zorathians had underestimated humanity's ability to fight back, but now they were paying the price. As the battle raged in space, back on Earth, the people watched the skies in awe. They saw their planet's defenders, the fleet they never knew existed, fighting back against the alien invaders with everything they had. The roar of the engines, the flash of plasma, and the blaze of explosions painted a picture of a world that wasn't ready to give up. Humanity had found its strength, and it was showing the galaxy that no one could push them around any longer. The sky opened, and Earth fought back. The universe would soon know that humanity was no longer weak. The Dreadnoughts were here, and Earth was ready to fight. The battle raged on in space, chaos and destruction unfolding on every screen as Earth's fleet fought desperately against the Zorathians. The Dreadnoughts, Earth's most powerful weapon, had been a game-changer, but the Zorathians were quick to adapt. The aliens shifted their focus, targeting Earth's weaker frigates and smaller ships, attempting to isolate and destroy them one by one. For every Zorathian ship that fell, two more seemed to appear in the vastness of space, reinforcing their offensive. On the battlefield, Lieutenant Sarah Connors was leading a squadron of pilots in one of the smaller, faster ships. Her role was crucial: protect the critical command ship, the heart of the fleet. If it fell, Earth's forces would be crippled. Sarah's heart pounded as she flew her ship through the chaos, weaving through fire from enemy fighters and plasma blasts from the Zorathian warships. She kept her focus, ignoring the danger, knowing that the lives of her fellow soldiers depended on her actions. Her communications were full of orders and reassurances as she guided her squadron. But deep inside, she felt the weight of the responsibility. She couldn't help but think of her father, a retired war hero, and wonder if he ever thought that this would be the way she would end up, fighting for Earth's survival, just like him. "Stay close and follow my lead," she shouted through the comms as she made a tight turn to avoid a barrage of fire aimed at her ship. The enemy ships were relentless, and despite their numbers, they were beginning to retreat into their formations. They weren't just after Earth's military. They were after Earth's heart, the last chance for humanity's survival. Sarah's squadron was making progress, and for a moment, there seemed to be a glimmer of hope. They were close to reaching the command ship, but the Zorathians weren't done yet. From behind, a massive Zorathian destroyer emerged, focusing all its firepower on Sarah's ship and her squadron. One by one, her fellow pilots were knocked out of the sky, their ships exploding in brilliant fireballs. The battlefield was turning against them. "Connors, we can't hold them off for much longer," one of her pilots, Lieutenant Jackson, shouted over the comms. His voice was filled with panic. But Sarah remained calm. She knew what she had to do. She locked eyes with the viewfinder and checked her power reserves. She didn't have enough left to fight off the Zorathian destroyer, but she had one last option. Without a word, Sarah engaged the self-destruct on her ship, a move known as the ultimate sacrifice. She closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of her father, of her mother who had died in the last alien attack, of all the people she would never get to see again. But in her heart, she knew she was doing the right thing. The squadron would survive. Earth would survive. This was her moment to make the ultimate sacrifice. "Tell them we fought for Earth," she said, her voice trembling slightly but resolute as she sent one final message to her father. The ship's systems started to overload, and she felt the tension in her body as the countdown began. With a steady hand, she pressed the button. Her ship rocketed forward, heading straight for the Zorathian destroyer. The explosion was massive, ripping apart the enemy ship in a wave of fire and destruction. And in that moment, Sarah's sacrifice bought her comrades enough time to make their way to the command ship. In the command center of Earth's fleet, Admiral Marcus Kane watched the moment unfold on the screens in front of him. His heart dropped as he saw Sarah's ship sacrifice herself, her name flashing across the screen. The cost of this war was becoming personal for everyone. The faces of the fallen were now etched into his mind, and the weight of their loss pressed down on him. He looked over at Commander Liam Hart, whose face was filled with sorrow and anger. They had lost many soldiers, and with every fallen hero, the gravity of the situation deepened. But Kane knew that they couldn't afford to grieve right now. They had a battle to win. Sarah Connor's sacrifice had bought them time, but time was running out. Kane's hands clenched into fists as he turned to face his officers. "We've lost too many," he said quietly, his voice dark and resolute. "But we will not let their deaths be in vain." There was a silence in the room as everyone absorbed the weight of Kane's words. Then, with a fierce look in his eyes, Kane gave the order that would change the tide of the battle. "Activate the Sunbreaker Protocol," he commanded. The Sunbreaker Protocol was Earth's last line of defense, a superweapon developed in secrecy, capable of decimating entire fleets, but it was not without risks. To use the Sunbreaker, the fleet would have to get dangerously close to the Zorathian forces, putting themselves in the line of fire. It was a last-ditch maneuver, a desperate gamble, but it was their only hope. Kane stood tall, despite the heavy weight of the decisions he had to make. He knew that this would be a pivotal moment in the history of Earth. This was not just about saving Earth. It was about showing the universe what humanity was capable of. They had been underestimated for too long, but now they would reveal their true strength. As the fleet prepared for the risky maneuver, Kane watched his officers, their faces grim. They knew the cost of this mission, and yet they were willing to give everything for Earth's survival. Every sacrifice mattered. Every life lost was a part of the greater fight. The humanity they were fighting for was not just their own. It was for all the generations to come. Sarah Connor's sacrifice would not be forgotten. Kane would make sure of that. Her bravery would fuel his determination as he took command of the final, dangerous mission to bring the Zorathians to their knees. The countdown for the Sunbreaker Protocol began, and the fleet's ships began to align, drawing closer to the heart of the Zorathian forces. As the crew prepared for the final assault, Kane stood at the front, gazing at the screens, knowing that the next few moments would decide the fate of Earth. The emotional weight of the battle had never been clearer. The stakes had never been higher. And yet, amidst the loss and sacrifice, there was one undeniable truth. Humanity would not give up. They would fight to the very end. And they would fight for Earth. The Zorathians would learn that humans were not to be underestimated. They had awakened a force they had never seen before. Kane's eyes hardened as he gave the final order. Let's show them what we're made of. And with that, the fleet moved forward into the heart of the battle, with one last chance to save Earth and honor the sacrifices of those who had already fallen. The tide of the battle had shifted, but the war was far from over. Despite the devastating power of Earth's dreadnoughts and the deadly Sunbreaker protocol, humanity was still outnumbered, and the Zorathians were relentless. Admiral Kane stood at the heart of the command center, his mind racing with calculations and strategies. He was coordinating the fleet, but there was one final move to make, one final gamble that could turn the course of this war. Commander Liam Hart was already on the move. He had been chosen for the mission to infiltrate the Zorathian mothership, a colossal structure that floated in the heart of their fleet. It was a dangerous mission, one that few would ever return from, but Hart had never been one to shy away from the impossible. His reputation as a war-hardened leader was built on the willingness to do whatever it took to win, no matter the cost. Hart and his small team of elite soldiers boarded one of Earth's fastest stealth ships, their weapons loaded and ready. The mission was simple, or so it seemed: infiltrate the Zorathian mothership, disable their central command, and weaken their ability to retaliate. The Zorathian mothership was heavily guarded, but Hart's team had one advantage. They knew the Zorathians would be focused on the large-scale battle above, leaving a narrow window for a small team to sneak past their defenses. As they entered the mothership's atmosphere, the team could feel the tension mounting. The silence of space gave way to the eerie hum of alien technology. Their ship's cloaking system rendered them nearly invisible, but they knew that once they set foot on the mothership, all bets were off. The Zorathians wouldn't go down without a fight. The team's first encounter with the Zorathians was brutal. As they entered the mothership's vast, dimly lit hallways, their footsteps echoed in the eerie quiet. They were met by a wave of heavily armored Zorathian soldiers, their strange weapons glowing in the low light. Without hesitation, Hart's team engaged, the blinding light of energy weapons flashing through the air as they fought in close quarters. The Zorathians were incredibly fast and strong, but the humans were determined. Hart's team moved with precision, using their agility and advanced training to outmaneuver their enemies. Every strike was calculated, every move designed to keep the Zorathians on the defensive. The clash of glowing blades, the sizzling sound of energy weapons, and the occasional roar of an alien soldier echoed through the halls. It was a fight like no other, a battle for survival in the heart of the enemy's stronghold. As they pressed deeper into the mothership, the stakes grew higher. The team was slowly being surrounded, but they fought on, determined not to let the Zorathians win. The battle was fierce, and the air was thick with tension. The walls of the mothership were slick with alien blood, and the glowing weapons of the soldiers lit up the dark corridors with a haunting brilliance. At one point, Hart found himself locked in a brutal hand-to-hand combat struggle with a massive Zorathian warrior. The creature's claws scraped against his armor, its savage growls filling the air as it tried to overpower him. Hart gritted his teeth and used the momentum of the creature's attacks against it, flipping the Zorathian over his shoulder and driving his blade deep into its chest. The alien's death throes echoed in the hallway, but there was no time to celebrate. They had to keep moving. Meanwhile, back on Earth's fleet, Admiral Kane was coordinating the dreadnoughts with precision. His voice came through the comms, cool and commanding, as he directed the ships through AI-driven tactics. The Zorathians, despite their superior numbers, were being outsmarted. Kane's strategic brilliance was evident as he made use of every trick in the book, turning the tables on the enemy with calculated precision. The Zorathian fleet, initially confident in its superiority, began to falter as their formations crumbled under the dreadnought's relentless assault. Kane's eyes were glued to the battle screen, watching as his forces tore through the Zorathian lines. But his mind was not solely focused on the victory he was witnessing above. It was on the mission unfolding below. He knew that if Hart's team succeeded in their mission, it would be the turning point of the war. But if they failed, Earth's forces would be left vulnerable, and the Zorathians would only grow stronger. "Keep pressing," Kane said to his commanders, his voice low but filled with determination. "We need that mothership down." Just as Hart's team was nearing their objective, disaster struck. They encountered an overwhelming force of Zorathian soldiers guarding the heart of the mothership, its central command. It was a trap. The Zorathians had been waiting for them. The team fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered. As Hart and his team made their final push to reach the command center, they were ambushed from all sides. The air was thick with energy blasts, the walls flashing with explosions as the Zorathians retaliated with fury. The team was pushed to their limits, their ammunition running low, their energy reserves depleting. It seemed like all hope was lost. But then, a beacon of light shone through the darkness. Kane's voice came through their comms. "Activate the Sunbreaker protocol." Now, the order was given, and the final piece of humanity's plan was set into motion. The Sunbreaker was Earth's ultimate weapon, a cataclysmic energy wave capable of wiping out entire fleets. But it came at a cost. The deployment of the Sunbreaker required a close-range approach, putting Earth's forces in extreme danger. Kane knew the risk, but he also knew that it was their only chance. The wave of energy that followed was unlike anything the universe had ever seen. It swept across the battlefield, engulfing the Zorathian fleet in a burst of blinding light. The Zorathians, caught off guard, were obliterated in a matter of moments, their ships disintegrating into nothingness. As the Sunbreaker unleashed its devastating power, the Zorathians' forces were scattered. It was a victory, one that no one had thought possible. Earth's fleet, though damaged, had survived, and the Zorathians were no longer a threat. But the victory came at a price. The Sunbreaker protocol had left Earth's forces vulnerable. Many ships had been severely damaged in the attack, and the Dreadnoughts were no longer as effective. Commander Hart's team had paid a heavy price for their success, with many soldiers falling in the final battle. But they had done it. They had infiltrated the mothership and delivered the final blow to the Zorathians. In the end, it was humanity's unyielding spirit that won the day. Against all odds, they had triumphed. The Zorathians had underestimated them, and now they would pay the price for it. Kane looked out over the battlefield, knowing that the fight wasn't over yet, but Earth had proven something that day. Humanity was not to be underestimated. As Earth's fleet regrouped, Kane looked at the burning wreckage of the Zorathian fleet. He knew that this was only the beginning of a new era, an era where humanity would stand as the true masters of the galaxy. The Zorathians had been the most powerful enemy they had ever faced, but humanity had defeated them, and they would rise stronger than ever before. The Zorathian Empire, once a colossal force in the galaxy, was in retreat. Their mighty warships, once impervious to any challenge, were now crippled, burning in the void of space. The tide of battle had decisively turned, and the Zorathians, with their pride shattered and their fleets in ruins, were forced to abandon their attack on Earth. The retreat of their ships signaled the end of their reign of terror. Admiral Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the flagship, staring at the remains of the Zorathian fleet through the observation window. The space before them was filled with the wreckage of enemy vessels, their once imposing forms now reduced to twisted fragments. The battle was over, and humanity had emerged victorious. But despite the triumph, there was little celebration. The loss of so many brave soldiers and the countless sacrifices weighed heavily on their hearts. The Zorathians had underestimated humanity's resolve, and now they were paying the price. In the silence of space, where only the faint hum of the ship's engines could be heard, Kane gathered his thoughts. The events of the past few days had changed everything. Earth had not only survived, But it had sent a message to the entire galaxy. Humanity would no longer bow to tyrants. The galaxy would remember this day as the day the Zorathians fell, not by the strength of their enemies, but by the sheer will of humanity. As the final remnants of the Zorathian fleet vanished into the distance, Admiral Kane composed himself. It was time for a message to the galaxy, a declaration of Earth's newfound strength. He stood tall, his voice steady as he spoke into the communications system. "People of the galaxy," he began, his voice carrying across the stars. "This is Admiral Marcus Kane of Earth's United Alliance. The Zorathian Empire has been defeated. Their invasion of Earth has ended. We stand victorious. But more than that, we stand united. Earth will no longer bow to tyrants. We are not prey. We are the storm. This is a new era for humanity. And no empire, no force, no alien race will ever threaten us again. We are Earth, and we will rise." His words echoed across the galaxy, reverberating through the communication networks, reaching the farthest corners of space. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy took notice of humanity. Earth had faced the greatest threat imaginable and emerged triumphant. The Zorathians were not the first to underestimate humanity, and they would not be the last. But Earth had proven, beyond any doubt, that it would not be defeated. As the broadcast ended, the crew of the flagship remained silent, reflecting on the weight of Kane's words. The victory was not just a military one. It was a victory for humanity's spirit, for its unwavering determination to protect its future. But it was also a victory tempered by loss. The cost of this war had been high, and the survivors knew that the battle was far from over. But for now, Earth had secured its place in the galaxy. The survivors of the war, both military and civilian, began the long process of mourning the fallen. Lieutenant Sarah Connors, one of the bravest pilots to have ever served, was among the many who had given their lives to ensure victory. She had been a symbol of courage and sacrifice, and her loss was deeply felt by everyone who had fought alongside her. But Sarah's father, a retired military officer who had once served as her mentor, had the hardest burden of all. As the camera zoomed in on him, standing on the bridge of a warship, he held a small silver flight badge in his hand. It was Sarah's badge, the one she had worn with pride as she flew into battle. Her father's eyes welled with tears as he traced the edge of the badge, a symbol of his daughter's sacrifice. He had lost his wife many years ago, and now he had lost his daughter. But he knew, deep down, that Sarah had died fighting for something greater than herself. She had died for Earth, for the future of humanity. The touching moment was captured in silence, the weight of the loss settling over the crew. The victory, though sweet, was bittersweet. The galaxy would never forget the price that had been paid for this moment, for the countless lives that had been lost, and for the heroes who had given everything for the survival of Earth. As the mourning period passed and the survivors began to heal, Earth began to rebuild. The war had been devastating, but humanity was resilient. The cities that had been destroyed by the Zorathian bombardment were being reconstructed, and the economy, though severely impacted, was beginning to recover. But more than anything, humanity had emerged from this conflict stronger than ever. The war had forged a new sense of unity, and the people of Earth were determined to face whatever challenges the future held with unwavering resolve. Admiral Kane, though forever changed by the events of the war, remained steadfast in his leadership. He knew that Earth had to be prepared for the next threat, whatever it might be. But for now, the focus was on rebuilding and ensuring that no other empire could ever dare to invade Earth again. As Kane looked out over the war-torn world, he couldn't help but feel a sense of hope. Earth had faced extinction, but it had fought back and won. The galaxy would never see humanity as weak again. Earth had proven itself to be a force to be reckoned with, and no matter what came next, humanity was ready. The survivors of the war, the men and women who had fought so valiantly, knew that the galaxy was now their stage. No longer would they be the underdogs, the prey of larger and more powerful civilizations. Earth had sent a message to the stars, and that message would resonate for eons to come. Humanity had arrived, and the galaxy would soon know what it meant to stand against the storm. The story of humanity's victory would be passed down through generations. It would be told in schools, shared in homes, and commemorated in monuments. The day the Zorathians fell would be remembered as a turning point in the history of the galaxy, an event that forever changed the balance of power and solidified humanity's place in the stars. And as Earth's fleet returned to orbit, now surrounded by the glowing lights of a reborn planet, the people of Earth knew one thing above all. They had faced the impossible, and they had conquered it. They had proved to the galaxy, and to themselves, that humanity was not to be underestimated. The storm had arrived, and no one would ever forget it.